Yeah. Very dramatic today, Jordan. What is happening, everybody, and welcome to MLB Live Before Lock. It is the final day before the NFL regular season starts, so do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. A lot of you guys have checked out our new NFL stuff this year, but if you haven't, reminder, you can sign up using the link we have below, and for $1, you get access to our core package. You can use our single lineup simulator for week one, which there's a lot going on week one. There's a Thursday slate, there's a Friday slate, there's Sunday slate, there's Sunday night football, there's Monday night football. So you're gonna get football 4 out of the next 5 days, and you get access to all the tools on our site for just $1. Sign up, link below, promo code kickoff. The promo code's already loaded into those links below, but if you did decide to just go to the website and sign up for a package, use the promo code kickoff. But link down below. That's the easiest way for you guys to sign up. Shout out to Chris Williams, who has already gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. And here, joining me, it is Eric Lindquist. It's Jordan Klein, also known as the Slurp King. And maybe Eric these days should be known as the Ryan Nelson King, because Ryan Nelson, big day for you yesterday, Eric.
Yeah, you saw that David Peterson still beat him because there is no God and time is an illusion. And honestly, we're all going to die one day and we're heading towards the inevitable. But in the midst of our meaningless time here on this earth, Ryan Nelson did not beat David Peterson. So that's cool.
Yeah, David Peterson, which I'd said yesterday, there was no upside to me saying not to play David Peterson because people weren't going to play him anyway. And I strongly considered stacking against him in single entry. It didn't matter. I stacked the Mariners in single entry and they weren't particularly great either. But you had yesterday, David Peterson, I think through 3 innings had like 7 or 8 strikeouts. And immediately I just started seeing the notification show up. I was like, good, this is what I want. I was getting him in Discord. I was getting him on Twitter. David Peterson, I think now even more so, gonna have to stack really heavily against him his next start. That regression, it is coming, and it is coming hard, Eric. But don't have to worry about that for a few more days. And obviously football tomorrow as well. We got tonight's baseball slate to break down. Start with this. Any weather concerns or anything else that's on your mind before we start breaking down the slate?
No, we've been running pretty good in terms of weather the last couple of days. We've had some really weird, wonky weather stuff, specifically that Chicago thing that just popped up out of the middle of nowhere. So am I going to say that it is impossible for something to happen? No, but this is probably the best weather day we've had all year, knock on wood.
So let's go ahead. Well, you might not feel
sorry, dude. Didn't mean to.
10 billion degrees over there. You're dying. Duke is dying of heat.
Yep.
So
I knocked on the table though. He didn't like that.
What happened?
It's okay. I knocked on the table, and so he thought somebody was there. So yeah, I just got Duke. Now you're watching the TV. Is that what you're doing? There's
one of his favorite shows, Drafters. He must be aware of all the overlay that exists over at Drafters. Because
how much overlay, Greg?
We should ask Duke because he seems to be the most acutely aware of all the Drafters ongoings. But Drafters, their big contest has right around 190,000 entries, and there's like 140,000 of them in right there. So you got that thing. It's like still 25 to 30% full, and it's going to be locking just 24 hours from now. So if you guys are looking to chase some overlay, go check out Drafters. And if you are looking to sign up, promo code Stochastic2 will get you up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit, up to $100. Pitchers for today. We've got 4 pay-up options, and most of them are pretty comparably owned. You got Sonny Gray, 18% owned. Shota Imanaga, 19% owned. George Kirby, 16% owned. The one who isn't pulling ownership is Nathan Eovaldi, but that's because he's pitching against the New York Yankees, which is an incredibly difficult matchup. And then you also kind of have the underlying thing, too, with the Texas Rangers, which is on my mind, that they say the other day that Corey Seager is going to be load managed. Then he just immediately goes on the injured list the next day. So I don't think he's injured. I think they were just like, here's a way to not have to play him. But that also makes me think a guy like Nathan Eovaldi, who has a very long injury history. I know that he has been better the last couple of years because it was like constant surgeries his first handful of years in the big leagues. But I don't imagine there's an incredibly long leash for Nathan Eovaldi in many of his starts down the stretch of the season here. So I'm kind of writing off Nathan Eovaldi to start with the pay-up options. Do you agree with me on that?
No, I don't. But I'm going to play him in like 2% of lineups. It's more of just like if somebody had a very, very chalky lineup in every spot and they had 9,300 left over and you were to land on Nathan Eovaldi, I think it's an okay thing to do. I mean, look at his last 3 starts: 103, 106, 96. I mean, it's the same thing as Paul Skeens yesterday, where like, we made the assumption that, he wasn't going to get out of the 5th inning. Sure enough, he didn't, but he still got up to 100 pitches. And Nathan Eovaldi, if he gets to 90, I think he's still in play. 1.06 whip, decent enough strikeout stuff once upon a time. There are some Yankees that at the same time, they'll bludgeon you in the back of the head. They still will strike out. I will say I disagree with you.
All right. Would you have any ideas there might be a limit on his pitch count, or you just think he'll be full go, which is certainly possible?
Yeah, I would say 92. That's what I put his pitch counts in. So like coming down to the end of this year, like I do bring it down, but like he's coming off of 10 strikeouts. It's against the White Sox. His velocity's back. He's a guy who's always been super reliant upon a fastball just being located. And I think it would be a big stretch to rip him down to like 80, 85 pitches. I can't do that. Do I think it's out of the realm that that's something that they do? No, I think we play a range of outcomes game as is, but I will not say that a 5% Nathan Eovaldi with the strikeout stuff, 24.5%, 6.7% barrel percentage, gets enough ground balls at 50%. Like, I think Nathan Eovaldi is just fine as a contrarian option, but again, he's in 2% of my lineups. It's not like I'm making a stand for him. It's just that I'm not doing anything to box him out of my lineups.
So let's talk about the other pay up options. And I mean, if you say you're going to play him in like potentially 2% of lineups when he's pulling 5% ownership, it's not like we're that far off here. But Nathan Eovaldi, not somebody who I'm personally interested in. Then you got these other 3 guys, like I mentioned, similar ownership on all of them. There's actually only one pitcher on the entire slate that's pulling over 20% ownership. We'll get to him in a little bit. That's Charlie Morton, because he's pitching against the Colorado Rockies. So he's 41% owned, and there's not another single pitcher on the slate north of 20% owned for DK. But Eric, if you're looking to pay up for any of the more popular pitchers, which once again, we're using popular loosely because Kirby, Imanaga, Gray, they're all under 20% owned. Do you have a preference to pay up for?
Yeah, Shota Imanaga is going to be the guy I'm just absolutely jamming today. Sonny Gray's had a bit of a home run problem here of late. And I don't know if you've noticed, Milwaukee is really launching baseballs into the stratosphere. This is not a fantastic spot. In fact, I'm pretty interested in Milwaukee bats going up against Sonny Gray. Does he have a 30% K rate? Yes, but he brings along with it nearly a 10% barrel percentage, 90 miles per hour exit velocity average off of the bat of opposing batters. That's nearly averaging a hard hit going up against him. Now, the same thing exists for Colin Ray on the other side. The huge difference is one is really, really popular with a strikeout rate, and Sonny Gray, or relative for this slate, that is. And then the other one is not getting any ownership at 4%. So I'm looking at Sonny Gray as a guy that I'll get to a couple of shares of, but I strongly prefer Shota Imanaga, and it really helps. And I posted this in the betting Discord, in the Lindy Discord, but I like getting Andrew McCutchen out of this lineup. He's been surprisingly good over the last month and had been DHing and just batting cleanup routinely. Connor Joe was already in this lineup, and that's obviously a good strikeout bat, but we just get a good game environment that's similar to the beginning of the season. It feels like Shota Imanaga, who's a fly ball pitcher, sitting with just a 35% ground ball percentage. If the wind is ever so slightly in, which it's more across today, but still playing pretty neutral, implied total of 3.3 up against for a Vegas implied total. And then just 25% K rate with some extra strikeouts there. O'Neal Cruz now batting cleanup instead of Andrew McCutchen there at 31% K rate. You've got Brian De La Cruz, 27%, Jared Trillo, and then Michael A. Taylor added to the lineup at 35.2% for a K rate. I know they're at the bottom half of this one, and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, IKF, he's up there with a 15.1% K rate, but like, this is an improved spot with Andrew McCutchen out of there. We know how good he can be against lefties, and this is obviously a watered-down Pittsburgh lineup as a result.
So there are tiers to me of these top pitchers, and it's really because with the ownership being about the same for these guys, it's really just what order do you like them in terms of like actual upside for DFS and how to look at them for GPPs, because I have it like this. I am pretty well overweight to the field on Imanaga. I'm about even with the field on Sonny Gray, and then I'm hardly getting myself to any of George Kirby. And a lot of the issues to me with George Kirby, he's a great real life pitcher, but not the highest strikeout guy. And I just like the upside a little bit more of Imanaga and Sonny Gray, but particularly on Imanaga, who to me is by far the best overall of these pay up options. So I'm on the same page as you. Imanaga is my guy. Same order with the other two for you, Sonny Gray and then George Kirby?
I have the same amount of Gray and Kirby right now, both in 15% of lineups.
All right, fair enough. But and also, if I'm building one lineup today, it's going to have Imanaga, and it wouldn't have either Kirby or Sonny Gray anyway.
Yeah, it would have Imanaga and Gallen. That would be my tournament lineup for today. We'll talk about the Morton chalk too, where hi Colorado in single entry. How are you this fine day?
Yeah, and I mean, we're about to talk about the ownership on Charlie Morton and some of the other pitchers in this price range because $8,200 Charlie Morton is pulling 41% ownership. I think it's about efficient. I know you play him in cash games easy. I'd say cash game pitchers. And I know we got a question in a Discord from Sick Hemi, and he wanted to know two favorite pitching combination for today. And to me, it is Imanaga and Charlie Morton together. Really, the only thing that we have to discuss about Charlie Morton is the ownership too high? Because clearly the matchup is incredible and the price tag isn't all that prohibitive.
Correct. So that's what I'm getting at is that I think it's a obvious spot to be rostering Charlie Morton. I have no problem with that in cash games. I have no problem with it. But from a betting perspective, looking at the line, I don't agree with how wide it's gotten. I don't know if I'm going to pull the trigger on it when it comes down to it, but I'm very tempted to stack against Charlie Morton in single entry today. In fact, that is the single entry build that I have here at the moment. I think he's about appropriately owned. I'm going to be a little bit under 41% of him, sitting right around 32% of him in lineups right now. I like the Colorado side as far as like upside bats. It's not the easiest game environment, like looking at the weather. It's blowing across and in ever so slightly, but 80 degrees, 50% humidity. Still one of the better game environments as things are starting to cool down everywhere except for like Southern California and Arizona. So I'm dying right now, but I am quite positive that you want to be getting yourself to some Charlie Morton in like 150 set and a 20 max setting. He is the guy that projects out the best relative to like on a point per dollar salary standpoint.
If you're not playing Charlie Morton in this 8K range, is there another pitch you really gravitate towards? And for reference, the only other pitchers picking up ownership in the 8K range, we got Zach Gallen 19%, Tanner Houck is 8% owned, Seth Lugo is now at 2% ownership, Yu Darvish 7%. It's a good match for him against the Detroit Tigers, but I'm assuming he's not going to be working very deep into the game, considering when's the last time Yu Darvish pitched now?
Oh no, but I have 42% Zach Gallen, so that'll be fun.
Let's see.
Second highest owned pitcher behind Imanaga for me.
Yeah, the last big league start for Yu Darvish was May 29th. And then he had one minor league rehab start,
66
which
pitches
came in June. So like it's very unrealistic to me that we're getting any kind of meaningful pitches out of Yu Darvish. Padres more or less locked into a playoff spot now. I think what they want to do with Darvish is just make sure he's healthy and ramped up for the postseason. Today's start, a great matchup, but not somebody I'm going to be able to click on. I think kind of by default, I'm going to have to agree with you, Eric. If you want to pivot off of Charlie Morton, Zach Gallen's the option because I don't want to play Tanner Houck. I don't want to play Seth Lugo. I don't want to play Yu Darvish on a pitch count. Gallen's the only guy.
Yeah, and we do get Michael Conforto back in, so it's not as great of a spot as what Ryan Nelson had yesterday. I mean, I ended up getting to over 50% once I got Encarnacion in there for Conforto at the end of it. Now, we did see Ryan Nelson, I think he was 18% in single entry, so he did end up a lot more popular, and maybe we see that with Gallen a little bit today, considering there's no other pronounced chalk. But all of the same points remain. Like Ryan Nelson has improved strikeout stuff, and I talked through what I've seen from it of late. Obviously was on heavy the over of that 5.5 strikeouts yesterday. And obviously in DFS over just over 50% of my lineups when it was all said and done. I'm not getting to as much Zach Gallen here, partially Michael Conforto there, but Zach Gallen gets a prime matchup. This is a San Francisco team that over the last 2 weeks has struck out the most against right-handed pitching in all of baseball. Over the last month, third the most in all of baseball. So Zach Gallen is another phenomenal option to be getting to. And I would say if we were just looking from an aerial view at like a neutral matchup in the middle of the summer, you just drop both him and Ryan Nelson into the same spot. I think we would have a higher expectation for Zach Gallen in a spot like this than Ryan Nelson. And I'm not saying that what happened yesterday is going to happen today. Ryan Nelson had the fastball dancing a little bit yesterday, but 395 expected slugging, really good metrics for Zach Gallen. Phenomenal ballpark upgrade for just about any pitcher on planet Earth. And then if he's not walking guys, 8.4%, which has kind of been creeping up. His hard hit gets very concentrated in a great ballpark like this. So for me, Zach Gallen, 23% K rate, 8K range, San Francisco striking out a metric ton. It just makes too much sense to be overweight to this number.
Yeah, and then Einsteinium, who I think he asked this before we talked about it, but he said thoughts on Darvish today. Yeah, I just don't expect him to throw very many pitches.
Okay, so one thing, Ken Ratty. So I get what you're saying. Hasn't Gallen been sucking lately? I don't care how he's been doing lately when it's a completely different ballpark. This is not his home ballpark. He sucked against the Dodgers. Against Boston, he went 6 innings, 9 strikeouts, put up 32 fantasy points. So, like, that was 2 outings ago. His last outing, yeah, he got lit up by the Dodgers. You know who else gets lit up by the Dodgers, Greg? Everybody. So, I don't, like, stop looking at box scores to dictate how you're going to do it. Look at velocity. Look at spin rate. Look at stuff like that. Like, things that can be explanatory for, like, what you can basically project for them going forward. But just looking at results against the Dodgers, yeah, a lot of players are going to have bad results against the Dodgers this year.
And super chat for I don't love Zach Gallen as much as Eric, but I think he's a good GPP play, especially if you just want to pivot off of Charlie Morton. $8,400, reasonable price tag, good matchup against the Giants. And then also, if you just don't want to play Charlie Morton in that price range, your options, I know I just said this a second ago, but your options are Gallen, Houck, Lugo, or Yu Darvish. Darvish, probably pretty restrictive pitch count. I don't love Seth Lugo or Tanner Houck. Zach Allen's moderately owned at $8,400. He's also priced down for the fact that I know his strikeout rate is like 19% since the All-Star break, but he also is priced down quite a bit for some of his recent performances. So $8,400, I definitely think that Zach Allen is at least playable. I have him in about 20% of lineup, so a little bit more than the field.
Okay. Now we're getting Gallen on the road been bad. How about Zach Gallen with a 4 ERA, 36 strikeouts in his last 5 appearances in San Francisco? 36 in your last 5. I'm just going to do the quick math on that. That's a little over 7 strikeouts per appearance in San Francisco. So, like, again, we can extrapolate data all you want. It's a phenomenal ballpark. You can't get me off of that.
There you go. Eric's playing him. And God. Somebody in chat, I don't even know who you were responding to in chat, but he is not going to be playing.
Jack Swales. And he's a good dude. So Gallen on the road been bad. Like, don't look at Gallen on the road and then have that. Like, how about Gallen in Seattle or San Francisco? I'd expect him, if he got to pitch there every single day, his numbers would be better than they are in Arizona.
There we go. Eric likes Zach Gallen. I'm a little bit overweight to him. I think he's reasonable. And Chris Williams is a super chat. He says, great show like always, fellas. Question. For the single lineup generator, should you refresh after every lineup made? I ran the same lineup back-to-back and the RO is different. Yeah, I mean, think about it. It's a simulation. If you're simulating something, the same results aren't going to pop up every single time.
Mm-hmm. Nor should they. It would be weird if they did. And then we would be just giving the same 5,000 lineups or the same 1,000 lineups because there's a 1,000 lineup cutoff when you're going to the small field. And that's usually what I'm using it the most for. It would be weird if I got the same results every single time. Like, you wouldn't want that, or you weren't actually simulating. You would be simulating against your expectations, which would be like a stone cold foregone conclusion.
It's like the difference between simulations and projections, right? Projection is just one number. You plug in a lineup, it's going to project the same. No matter what, it's going to have the same projection, but the results aren't always going to be the same. It would be like looking back at a slate and saying, I can't remember off the top of my head which. Here's an example. It'd be like, hey, last night David Peterson had 70 billion strikeouts against the Boston Red Sox. Therefore, every single time he played last night's slate, he's going to have 70 billion strikeouts against them. It's just one individual instance that happened last night, and the sims are going to be just a collection of simulations. You run a lot of them, so you're going to find if a lineup is good, it's going to be good on different simulation runs. It's just not necessarily going to have all the same metrics because, for instance, this is something that could definitely change some of the results, is let's say you're simulating for a small slate contest, less than 1,000 lineups. And let's say in one of those runs, you have a lineup that wins 5 times and one of the other times the lineup wins 3 times, it's still a really good lineup, but the actual sim ROI is going to show up much higher in the time it won 5 times just because GPPs pay out top heavy. So it's going to be a little bit different when you run it different times, but that's just kind of the nature of how simulations work.
Great explanation.
Anything else you want to add about the 8K pitchers?
No. Well, did I have like 1% Tanner Houck. I have 2% Seth Lugo. That's funny because they're 8 and 2% respectively. I really have no desire to play either.
7K pitchers. We've only got one of these guys pulling ownership. That is Tyler McGill pitching against the Boston Red Sox. I'm actually a little bit surprised how popular he is. He got 17% ownership going to McGill. And then there are no other pitchers in the 7K range that are pulling any kind of ownership. So to start, let's talk about Tyler McGill going up against the Boston Red Sox. What do you make of his ownership, Eric?
I have 0%.
I just don't really get why he's popular.
I don't either. He came out of AAA because he was terrible. He got to face the White Sox. That's his one start. And now he's popular, coming off of 6 strikeouts and 22 fantasy points against the White Sox. I jammed him against the White Sox. I didn't care. But I care today. He's playing Boston. Boston, against right-handed pitching, confirmed a thing over just about any sample size besides the last, 14-day sample size. Over the course of 2024, you're seeing Boston just absolutely wreck. 110 WRC plus against right-handed pitching. They do strike out at a 24% clip. That is why Tyler McGill is popular. At this kind of ownership, I have to side with the Boston side. So, I'm playing Colorado. I'm playing Boston. that sounds about as dusty as it gets on a slate like today. But, I really am not that intimidated by McGill. I'm not that intimidated by, some of the ownership coming in on Charlie Morton, considering how extreme it is. So, for me, Tyler McGill, just a full pass for me. I would rather play Bobby Miller, and I know that is horrible to say out loud because he's been as egregious and as disappointing of a pitcher as I can remember in however long, because he legitimately has good stuff. I will continue to say that, I look at Bobby Miller in this fastball, and I don't understand how he has a 593 slugging, a 631 expected slugging against him. He throws it 98. The problem is it's just right over the plate, and he's just getting bludgeoned. But I think if Bobby Miller 4% against an Angels lineup that yesterday we said, hey, they're in a probably better spot than most people were expecting up against Walker Buehler. I think it's a little bit of the inverse today where, Walker Buehler wasn't even popular by any means, but I think Bobby Miller, just considering what is right next to him, Tyler McGill, I'm at least interested to take a couple of shots.
I'd rather just go cheaper. I don't really like any
Hayden
pitchers
Birdsong's
all that much in the 7K range. And with Tyler McGill, sure, he's strikeout upside. He's generating a lot of swing and misses, but it's just funny that he's projected for more ownership against the Boston Red Sox than he was his last time out against the Chicago White Sox. And look at the numbers overall for McGill. They're not terrible this year. 4.82 ERA, 4.26 expected ERA. Most importantly for DFS purposes, he's got the 26.3% K rate. I just think the ownership a little bit too high on Tyler McGill. So large field GPPs, I like stacking the Red Sox, get a little bit of leverage there. Not there's crazy ownership going to McGill, but there's only one super popular pitcher, and the McGill is in the next tier of pitchers that are pulling some sort of ownership. 7K range, I know you mentioned Bobby Miller, only 5% owned. Is he the only one who you potentially be considering as a pivot, or anybody else as well?
Yeah, just Bobby Miller in this range, because then Hayden Birdsong's the one who has strikeout stuff and is pitching in the same ballpark. He has to take on Arizona, and Arizona, Hansel, so hot right now. But I still think Hayden Birdsong is worth quite a bit of exposure at 6K in San Francisco. I'm much more comfortable making that leap than anything else here in the 7K range. I'm simply saying, I don't understand that Bobby Miller would be one less than 1/3 the ownership of Tyler McGill. That seems a little bit off to me.
The McGill ownership being what it is kind of confuses me, but on the other side, I kind of feel the same about Hayden Birdsong's price point. He's so ridiculously cheap at 6K, and you look at his numbers overall for the year, also somebody who has struggled a little bit. 5.14 ERA, 4.66 expected ERA, but he's got the 28% strikeout rate, and he's 6K. So is there a chance he gets lit up because he's not great? For sure. But at the same time, too, he's pitching in a super pitcher-friendly ballpark. The matchup is, once again, not ideal, but for a guy with his strikeout upside to only be 6K, I think that he's a good GPP target. I wouldn't play him in a cash game or anything like that. That would be terrifying because he get lit on fire. But at 6K, he's pretty clearly the highest upside punt.
I just reran stuff. I got to 8% Bobby Miller. I do like Bobby Miller a little bit more. But yeah, Hayden Birdsong, I have 25% of. Yeah, I capped him at 25%. I was getting more than that a little bit earlier, and I just didn't feel all that good about it. But I do think anybody sub 7,500, if you made me pick one guy out of everybody to win in strikeouts, my number one draft pick at 7,500 and under is Hayden Birdsong. Like, I think that alone at 6K in this ballpark, even against Arizona, I have to do it.
Any other punt pitchers that you are liking for tonight?
I have a little bit of JP Sears at 7.7K. Didn't bring him up. I've got 6% of him. Again, Oakland, obviously a great ballpark and a great matchup against Seattle, even though they're not striking out as much against Southpaws. Not going to be touching Blaylock, not going to be touching Canning. I just find them to be a little bit unnecessary. Yeah, Kiter Montero. I am kind of interested to see what his pitch count's going to be here. Detroit has gone to like some really heavy bullpen approaches, and San Diego has played shorter than it has in the past here. Jorge Polanco not in that Seattle lineup for what it's worth. That's interesting. But yeah, otherwise, I think we kind of covered everything down here. Do you have any Ben Lively against Kansas City?
Let's see. I just ran everything again.
And now Marcus Stroman does look more appealing with no Corey Seager in the future. Like, I think 4% of him I'm okay with, but like, I can't make a meaningful stand on Marcus Stroman.
You had asked me about Ben Lively. I have him of the top 150 lineups, I have he's in one of them. So
yep,
no.
There you go. Okay. And I ended up with 2% Tyler McGill. So I don't have 0 anymore. So that's cool.
Let me see. Other punt pitchers.
Colin Ray a little bit.
Birdsong for me at 6K. I do have 5% of Marcus Stroman. That's it, though.
Yep. That sounds great to me.
All right, let's take a look at the FanDuel pitchers, and then whose lineup are you inputting there on screen, by the way, Jordan?
Bob the Builder 872.
All right. Couldn't build his own lineup. Needed Jordan to do it for him. All right.
Jordan Cuckboy69. That's Jordan's username on DK.
King Builder.
Slurp King Builder 69. 420.
So we'll see what the Builders lineup is looking like here when Jordan is done putting it in. We'll see what the ROI is on that. But let's go ahead now and look at pitchers on the FanDuel side of things. And over on FanDuel, you've got Charlie Morton, $9,100, fairly cheap price point for FanDuel, 26% owned. Tyler McGill is your second most popular pitcher at 12% owned. Everybody else on the slate is sub 10% owned. For cash games, super simple on FanDuel. Charlie Morton is about as easy of a button to press as you could possibly have. So cash games, go ahead and play Charlie Morton. In a GPP, Eric, I want to know from yourself and maybe from Duke as well. Are you looking to play Charlie Morton in a GPP if you're playing one FanDuel lineup? Or would you go and pivot off of him and go in another direction?
What do you think, Duke? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do?
It would be really funny if he just like jumped up and knocked the camera over or something right now.
What do you think? Got a good boy, though. We got a good boy.
He's not really on camera. He's covered up by your Twitter handle.
Oh,
it's actually really funny because it looks like what you're doing just based on where your camera's positioned. It looked like you were directing everybody to your Twitter handle.
Oh, well, that was nice of me. There we are. It's so fucking hot out here, guys. I can't even with you. Yeah, for FanDuel, I think it's kind of an interesting choice because, like, obviously Charlie Morton is just constantly going to get jammed. And I think I've already made it known that I kind of like the Colorado side of things here. But the Dodgers are the mega chalk over on FanDuel. You're not going to play Griffin Canning by any means. I think just because, like, looking at some of the more popular offenses, like if I were going to play Tyler McGill, I think I would be doing it on FanDuel. Not going to be doing it over on DK by any means. Kind of interesting. I think one lineup, I'm actually going to build out one lineup here while we're at it. McGill more popular. Bobby Miller, inexplicably 9.2%, although he's 6,300. That's funny. I think Sonny Gray looks much more appealing there. 5.1% ownership for him. Zach Gallen pulling nearly double the ownership. Hayden Birdsong at 7,700, more expensive. Probably wouldn't be doing that either. I think Sonny Gray's probably the answer for me on FanDuel looking at my first run of stuff there.
I would just go with Imanaga if I'm not playing Morton. And also, I don't think the ownership on Morton is an issue. Maybe in single entry, it'll be crazy high, and that will be more problematic. But for like a large field GPP, 25% Morton on this slate at his price point, that's not an issue for me. But if you want to get away from him, I think the price point is pretty reasonable. $9,900 for Imanaga. And I know you mentioned Sonny Gray, who I don't really have an issue with. He's 5% owned, but I mean, Imanaga is $600 less expensive. If I'm building one lineup, and by the way, the lineup there from the builder looking pretty
Jesus
good, 61% sim ROI there.
Okay, here's what he did. He went to the Sims. He took his number one sim lineup and he put it into the single entry lineup, which isn't a terrible way of doing it. But like, that looks auspiciously similar to my top lineup that I just built out in the Sims.
What's your top lineup then? What team is in it?
Why did you do that, Jordan? Why did you do that? Why?
You're being interrogated.
Why am I being interrogated?
You've uncovered a conspiracy.
Oh. Dun dun dun. Yeah, that was actually pretty good. Yeah, I'm pretty positive that anyway, I'm very, very happy for it. Bob the Builder absolutely smashed. I don't have a sim. Well, there you go. That's perfect. That lineup is going to smash and it's going to bang because it's very similar to what I have at the top of mine. But yeah, Imanaga. Love Imanaga for FanDuel too.
So here's a question for you. We've talked about the pitchers, and do you have anything else to add about FanDuel pitching?
No.
All right. So let's talk a little bit on single entry and our favorite stack for single entry, and then we'll talk about large field stacks. So first off, the ownership here that we have, Dodgers, super popular. They're pulling 16% ownership. Braves, pretty popular, pulling 10% ownership. Every other offense is pretty contrary. No other team more than 6% ownership, unless this has changed over the course of the last couple of minutes. But no, same over there on
Will Smith
Jordan's
not in the Dodgers lineup.
Well.
This is just stupid.
Dodgers really highly owned, Braves really highly owned. Those are not teams I'm looking to stack in single entry. I just think the ownership is going to be inflated. Are you looking to get to the Braves or the Dodgers in single entry, Eric, or is there a lesser owned team that you think could really differentiate a lineup?
Oh, Austin Barnes is catching for the Dodgers today, so that just sucks. For single entry today, I mean, I'm going to Colorado. I'm still going to play Colorado no matter what. I was going to play Will Smith at catcher because whatever his face is, the 9-hole hitter there for Colorado didn't seem all that appealing. This, what's his name? Drew Romo. Best of luck to you, Drew Romo. Congratulations on your double dong now that I've talked shit about you. But I was going to play Will Smith at catcher, and now I got to figure something else out.
So let me make sure that no real problematic things there for me. So I'm looking at single entry, and I understand the leverage angle on the Rockies. It's kind of like how Sean Jeezy a couple of days ago was playing the A's in single entry to get some leverage off of Logan Gilbert. I just think it's so unlikely on a slate of this size, despite the leverage they're bringing you, that the Rockies are going to have some sort of slate-breaking fantasy upside game or anything. But there's other teams that are just so low owned, and there's no other real leverage spots other than playing the Colorado Rockies. So then I'm looking for who's the lowest owned team that I think is in the best matchup. To me, it's the Los Angeles Angels, because Bobby Miller has been terrible this year. If you take the name out of the equation, if you take the velocity out of the equation, and you just looked at the numbers that Bobby Miller has this year, he's made 10 starts, 44 innings, 7.25 ERA, 6.54 expected ERA, 6.43 FIP, 20% strikeout rate, 11% walk rate. Homers have been an issue for him this year. He has a 25% home run to fly ball rate. I think this is the pitcher who has the highest upside. I don't know the right way to frame this, but the highest upside against of any pitcher on the slate is probably Bobby Miller, because his bad starts are so fucking terrible that I don't even care that it's the Angels he's going up against. I really like stacking against Bobby Miller, who also in the minor leagues, because he was struggling in the big leagues. So the Dodgers sent him down to AAA. In AAA, he had a 5.82 ERA and a 5.38 FIP. They also sent him down to A-ball to make a couple of starts. We had a 9.95 ERA and a 4.7 FIP. I like stacking against Bobby Miller with a very low-owned Angel stack.
I do not hate that at all. Angels one of my favorite stacks today as well. That was always going to be one of the things. I mean, I just like playing both sides of it. I mean, we're getting like a 4 or 5% Bobby Miller, who I look at the velocity and I look at the pitch mix, and I don't understand it. We said that how many times last year about Bobby Miller, Greg? We said that forever. You and I could not believe that this guy wasn't running into like 7, 8, 9 strikeouts a night, let alone giving up hard contact and getting smashed and his face kicked in like he has this year. So I'm completely with you. The Angels to have 6.2% ownership share, I have no problem with it. My big problem for single entry is like I do get an opportunity to stack up against an over-owned Charlie Morton, and well, it's very, very viable what you're saying. It's a 10-game slate. You don't have to go to Colorado. They're going to be so unowned. And when single entry pops up and we see 55, 60% Charlie Morton, I'm going to feel all right with having Colorado.
There we've got Chris Williams says, usually handled, watch the show and profit that way, but got the Sims package today, so didn't know if I was doing something incorrect. Nope, not at all. Also, Chris, I've got some tutorial videos that are up on the YouTube channel. If you have any additional questions, you could always ask me. You don't have to leave, super chat. I'm not sure if you're on Twitter, Chris. I can't remember. But yeah, if you ever want to, you could DM me on Twitter, or because you're a sub now, you get access to our Discord channel. You can message me on Discord and I could help you out with any questions you might have about any of the tools or data. And then he also super chatted Bob the Builder's lineup there that Jordan had already plugged in. So thank you very much for that, Chris. We do appreciate all of the support. And for everybody else, if you haven't done yet, like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. So for large field GPPs, I've already said the Angels are my single entry stack. What's the team you get the most exposure to in large field GPPs, though, Eric?
Oh, God. It was the Dodgers. I had the most of the Dodgers. I'm not sure what I'm going to do here without Will Smith in it, because I thought there were certain batters that you could get to today that the ownership wasn't egregious. And Will Smith was one of them, sitting around like 7 to 10% wherever you looked. That's not going to be the case now. Also, I don't know if anybody saw Shohei Ohtani's home run odds. I posted a bunch of stuff about it today, but like, my God, it's shorter than anything we've seen from Aaron Judge this season. It is 90 degrees in Anaheim today at first pitch. The wind is blowing out. It's like unreal, some of the numbers that are being posted for Shohei Ohtani to go yard in a ballpark that's played very small for lefty power for the last couple of years since they lowered that yellow line. But my God, Shohei Ohtani numbers. I'm still going to play a ton of Shohei Ohtani. I'm still going to play a number of these Dodgers. I just don't know if I'm going to have them as 5-mans as much as I was planning on before. I think the teams that probably take a big step up for me now, just looking at like some of the more popular pitchers, I like Arizona, but I'm not going to be jamming them against Hayden Birdsong. I like getting to Milwaukee a ton against Sonny Gray, but not too hard to get over 2.7% ownership share. I'm really flat at the top, I think, is probably going to be what ends up happening. I had 28% Dodger stacks, but I'm probably going to be reducing that by quite a bit because Will Smith was a huge part of what I was doing. And yeah, you get a cheaper catcher in there, but you get a much worse catcher in there, as well as having it be Austin Barnes. Probably pulls around the same ownership, despite the fact that, yeah, he hits 266. He's a decent enough functional catcher, but you're really looking for home runs. You're looking to keep the line moving here. And I thought Will Smith was just an awesome one-off bat, and thought he was going to be an awesome piece of my lineups, and that is not going to happen anymore.
Yeah, so the Angels, even in large field GPPs, that's the team I get the most exposure to. Second was the Dodgers. Now, with that said, the second most of the Dodgers for me was 12% of them, which was actually less than what the field had. So not like anything crazy, but it was a little bit underweight to the field on them. My ownership on the Dodgers got really reduced by not having Will Smith in the lineup. I have a ton of 3-man Dodger stacks. I think they're great as a secondary stack. Yep. But the way my lineups are looking right now, I actually only have 3% 5-man Dodger stacks, Eric, but I actually have 14% of them as a 3-man stack. So that's my preferred way to get to the Dodgers. Secondary 3-man stack with Will Smith now out of the picture. The team that I am finding myself getting to more of than I was expecting before, Cleveland Guardians against Seth Lugo. Have you seen Lugo's numbers the last couple of months? Because there was a point in time where he had like the second best odds to win the American League Cy Young or something ridiculous. Maybe it was the third best odds. And his actual numbers were really good, but the underlying numbers suggest there was going to be some sort of regression, not quite to this extent, but the wheels have really fallen off on Seth Lugo since the All-Star break. He had a 4.78 ERA in July. He had a 4.91 ERA in August. He has totally lost the ability to generate swing and misses because May he had a 27% strikeout rate. June he had a 26% strikeout rate. And then it was 18% in July, 19% in August. I think fatigue is probably the biggest issue here with Seth Lugo. If you guys remember a few years ago, this was a relief pitcher in Seth Lugo. So what's the most amount of...
For what it's worth, it's the inverse of Brady Singer yesterday. I want to get to all the righties against Seth Lugo. 188 expected ISO, 131 expected ISO against lefties. He's actually been a lot better. I know that when you're playing 5-mans, you're going to get to quite a few like lefties along with it. And I have no problem with it, especially when you're talking Jose Ramirez, when you're talking some of these other guys. But Cleveland, they actually pay attention to baseball analytics. You saw who's batting cleanup today, right?
For Cleveland today, I don't remember the lineup off
David
the top
Fry,
of my head.
normally the guy who bats cleanup when they're facing lefties, because Seth Lugo is a reverse splits pitcher in terms of power. And so they actually did a smart kid thing, and we don't see this enough. So once again, shout out Stephen Vogt for being like the GOAT manager of the season.
Yeah, David Fry batting cleanup to Eric's point there. And I was able to dig up the numbers here on Seth Lugo, which I just had to go to his page on FanGraphs. But I think this kind of shows a good reason to think that fatigue might be the issue for his drop-off. He's thrown 179 innings this year. Last year, he threw 146. That was the first time he'd ever thrown more than 101 in the season. And the time he did that was all the way back in 2018. So you got a guy who's a relief pitcher that was throwing around 50 innings per year. He throws 146 last year. And now this year, 179. And it just seems like he's kind of falling apart. Maybe there's an underlying injury or something like that, which also would be reason to want to be stacking against him. But more than that, I really think he's just fatigued at this point in the season. The underlying numbers have always suggested there was going to be regression coming with Seth Lugo. And this looks like a pretty good time to be stacking against him. So the Guardians are actually the team I'm getting the second most exposure to.
Yeah, second most for me is Boston. Purely McGill. So yeah, I have number 1 was Dodgers, number 2 is Boston, and number 3 is Colorado at 11%. And then I'm really, really flat. It is a very flat day for me in the old stack department.
Are there any other low-owned stacks? I mean, I know we're not talking about like
Milwaukee.
1 or 2% owned stacks or anything like that, but any super low-owned stacks that you're finding as a priority for you?
Yeah, I'm going to try to depress some of this Colorado because I boosted some of them to get them into lineups more as a leverage stack. And then I think Milwaukee's probably in the more, like, I think they could actually smash. I mean, we're seeing Jackson Chourio. This dude is just absolutely out of his freaking mind. Willy Adames, he's just the perfect fly ball home run hitter where he can outperform a 41% hard hit. And sub 90% average exit velocity because he lofts it. 20-degree average launch angle is very, very useful. Going through this lineup against Sonny Gray. And I repeat, Sonny Gray has just been giving up long ball after long ball lately. He's going to be somewhat popular as the most expensive pitcher on the slate. But the guy has given up legitimately a home run in 6 straight starts, including 2 and 3 home runs in 2 of his last 4, which is just insane. Yeah, nearly a 4 ERA for him now. This is not the Sonny Gray we saw at the beginning of the season. Could he still mow down a bunch of Milwaukee bats? Sure, but Milwaukee's been one of the more like high variance offenses. I haven't been able to get a grasp on them all year. So I'm just going to play more of their side, though. I think that they're like a really nice leverage stack today.
Yeah, I didn't get to any of the crazy low-owned stacks meaningfully, and these are the teams that are pulling less than 3% ownership. You've got I'll say all the teams pulling less than 4% ownership. You got the Yankees against the Rangers. The problem with the Yankees, it's not necessarily the spot they're in, although it's not ideal. It's really just the price tags on the Yankees at this point. It's so uber expensive that I find it to be prohibitive. Then you got the Pirates against Imanaga. They're 3.6% owned. No real interest for me there. Boston Red Sox against McGill. Yeah, I can make a case for Boston going up against McGill just because of the ownership on him. So if I had to take one of these teams sub 4% owned, I would say the Boston Red Sox, but still, I don't find them as a priority for me. Oakland against George Kirby, not really interested. Milwaukee against Sonny Gray, I'm also not really interested. Mets against Houck, no thanks. Rockies against Charlie Morton, also A lot of leverage there, but the Rockies are absolute dog shit, so I don't want to be playing them. Detroit Tigers against Yu Darvish. There's no real leverage there. Yu Darvish is also going to be limited. The Padres have a really good bullpen. And then I don't want to play the Giants against Zach Gallen. So the teams that I am getting overweight to, it's those teams that are like 5 to 6% owned that I mentioned, like the Cleveland Guardians or going to a team like the Los Angeles Angels.
Cool.
Anything else you want to bring up as far as stacks go?
Yeah, somebody said that they didn't like the lineup that they rolled out for Milwaukee. I mean, no Contreras, no Sanchez, no Hoskins. I get it, totally. But, like, we got a lot of cheap batters in there. And I will say, for what it's worth, guys like Eric Haas, they can still, provide some power and be relatively low owned. The guy's hitting 295 with 3 homers and an 840 OPS. Like, it's not a huge drop off. I know Sanchez has been out of his mind. I know Contreras is one of the best hitting catchers in baseball, but like, you have a lot bigger discrepancies between hitters that exist in baseball. Like, I don't know, Will Smith and Austin Barnes. I'll bring that point up again. But for what it's worth, Eric Haas has been smashing baseballs to a certain extent, still 40% hard hit, decent enough launch on it, strikes out a ton. He's batting 9th. But overall, I don't look at the Milwaukee lineup as this drastic downgrade. Plus, you can only play one catcher on DraftKings anyway. So, like, you have to choose between Contreras or Sanchez most of the time now. Both of them off the table. You get a cheaper Eric Haas in there. Like, I have no problem with the way that Milwaukee's lineup is constructed.
Now, over on FanDuel, Mr. Colcam asked for our favorite FanDuel stacks. I really don't feel too much differently about FanDuel than I do about DraftKings. Dodgers even more popular over on FanDuel, 22% owned as a team. So that's crazy high. It's clearly a good spot for the Dodgers. They have insane upside against Griffin Canning. I just don't want to play 22% of them on a slate of this size. So cash games, load up on the Dodgers. It's a mark I'd want to be underweights to the field to in GPPs. But for single entry purposes, my favorite stack, and also feel the same way for GPPs, same stuff I said before, the Angels, but you're also getting leverage as well. You brought it up when we were talking about FanDuel pitchers, Eric. Bobby Miller's the 3rd most popular pitcher on FanDuel. He's been terrible this year. He's super, super cheap. So I get why people would look at him as a punt because he does have good stuff and he does have a good matchup on paper. But I prefer the Angels side than Bobby Miller's the 3rd most popular pitcher on FanDuel. So I like the leverage there with the Angels.
I 100% agree with you. It's the most obvious, I think, of all the stacks we talked about. If you're making one lineup on FanDuel, I don't see how you don't have a 4-man Angel stack on it. Hey, Jonathan India, number 1 play in the portfolio EV on OddsShopper goes yard first at bat.
Ooh. Any other bets that you're liking for tonight, Eric?
There are a couple. I'm going to post them here after the show, but I have a couple of home run bets that are coming up a little bit later for me. Arrighetti just started, so I was on that. I like Zach Gallen for strikeouts again, so I liked Ryan Nelson yesterday. Wish I had laddered that rather than just jamming the 5.5 Ks. But such is life. I will take wins when they show up, and I think that's pretty clear cut. Cash the under already of the Toronto game. That was nice after they had 5 runs in the first 1 in 2/3 innings basically of that game. So it ended up being a sweaty cash.
There we have it. And we'll do home run picks in a second. I just want to see what this lineup ends up being so we could look at it. Whose lineup is this one, Jordan? All right. Let's see how Paul's lineup is looking. We will know in a second.
Show me that.
Looks like he made a Royal stack there. Looks pretty good. 72.7% sim ROI. Good to roll it out, Paul. I say go ahead and play it. Eric, home run picks. Most important part of the entire day is when you, myself, and the Slurp King give out our home run picks. Eric, who's the dong of the night? Who do you like to go yard?
So I'm going to give you 2, one from a betting perspective, one from a DFS perspective. I thought it was super sharp by Cleveland today. He's one of my favorite catchers to get to on the slate, or first base catcher. David Fry. David Fry is going to go yard. I think that that's a great DFS play. I don't think anybody is really recognizing this. You have to choose between Fry and Manzardo. I do, coming off of yesterday, strongly prefer a David Fry, who I'm seeing projected at like 1-2% some spots. Right on right. Any reliever that they bring in does give him like some pinch hit risk, I guess, with Josh Naylor there. But considering nobody is clicking on him, I'll get the super low on one there. And then from a betting perspective, I know it's a terrible ballpark, but we saw Jock Peterson hit a lot of homers out of San Francisco. He gets Hayden Birdsong, who strikes out a lot of dudes. But Jock Peterson, when he gets a hold of one into the cove, I saw plus 600 earlier today. I think that is a fantastic bet.
Logan O'Hop for me. Trying to figure
Love.
out which guy I want to go to from the Angels. And unless I missed it, I don't think we have the Angels lineup yet. Did you see that come across, Eric?
No, it's not out yet.
All right. So we don't know exactly who's in the lineup for the Angels, that, you know, slate locking soon. Maybe that'll lower their ownership even a little bit more. But Logan O'Hop, he's the player I get the most of from the Angels. So he is going to be my home run pick. Now we'll see what we have from chat. And we've got Kyle Gentry going with Brendan Rodgers to lead it off there. Comment God going with Jackson Churio. We've got Taglia from June Sosa, Matt Olson from Hayes. We've got Sam Merrill from Jose Mora, Matt Olson also from BX44, Travis d'Arnaud from J Lovelady. We got Nicholas Barrett saying that he's got a 3-man homer prop of Seiya Suzuki, Paul Goldschmidt, and Gunnar Henderson. But his one that he is going with is going to be Gunnar Henderson, he says there. Sotex has got Jake Bowers. We've got Haas and Machado from Malucar. Jackson Merrill from June Sosa. We've got... I hate when the chat moves and then I lose what I was looking at. Michael Swarek says, though it's not a home run pick. Jackson Merrill as well from Ken Ratty. Jazz Chisholm from Reg Kelly. Willie Adamas from Ross K. We've got here Pete Crow Armstrong from Dahmer 707. Brendan Donovan from Flim Flam Man. We've got Francisco Rubio going with Mickey Moniak. Alex Serra also going with Mickey Moniak. And William Westry going with Mickey Moniak. Everybody in a row. Mickey Moniak there. Austin Barnes from Greg Collins. Eric Traub has got Tommy Edman. We've got Rafael Devers from Luca Lover. Duran from Aaron Hines. Then it's being pointed out to me that Gunnar Henderson already homered. So, all right. Safe home run pick. I respect it, though. Now we've got Rafael Devers from Jake Swales and Freddie Freeman from Grant Gedzoff. And then we've got Ryan Stubbs going with Dansby Swanson. Bring it home, Jordan. Close out the show. Who's it going to be?
Connor Joe. Dong.
All right. You guys heard the Slurp King. Connor Joe is his pick for today. So guys, thank you very much for watching. If you've not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you do a best ball draft, check out Drafters. Looks like there's going to be some overlay there. So certainly something to be taking advantage of. Football starting tomorrow with actual games as well. So that'll be fun. Thursday night football. We got Friday night football on Friday. Let's check out all of our content tomorrow, guys. Peace out. Have a good night. We'll see you here tomorrow.